So it's one thing to say, hey, the drone is great for search and rescue, or it's great for accident reconstruction, or it's great for doing topographical maps. All of these things are great, but people are now starting drone programs and figuring out how they will integrate UAV into their workflow.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 170. What do we know about the Yuneec Drone Company and its products? Well, today's guest will fill us in on the details. Frank DeMartin is Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the Americas at Yuneec. The company has a long history in the aviation industry, starting out as a manufacturer of remote-controlled aircraft and evolving into one of today's leading drone makers. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Frank talks about the origin and history of Yuneec, its latest products and some use cases, and he offers insights into the commercial and consumer drone industry. But before we hear from Frank, I want to thank those of you who have been supporting my funding campaign on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to patreon.com/drone radio show to join the team. So let's learn how Yuneec is serving the consumer and commercial drone markets with Frank DeMartin. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Frank to introduce himself.
Frank DeMartin. I am Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Yuneec USA, and I manage the business in the Americas, so North America and Latin America.
Frank, I'm sure all of us have heard of Yuneec, but can you give us some background on the company, how it got started, and how it's evolved?
Absolutely. So, Yuneec has been around actually for almost 20 years. The company started back in 1999. The founder of the company created a design for radio-controlled aircraft, kind of a new design, and he introduced that to a small company called Horizon Hobby, and that's how really Yuneec started. Since then, the company's been involved and been a leader in electric aviation, both unmanned and manned. So the company actually has a manned electric aircraft that actually was certified in Europe. We haven't really followed through. That's not our main core business, but a lot of the technologies have followed through on the unmanned side as well. So about 4 years ago, Yuneec turned its unmanned electric aviation technology towards the drone space. And we introduced our first drone about 3.5 to 4 years ago. And that was a quadcopter. And since then, we've introduced quite a few products in the consumer and commercial space. And today we produce almost 1 million units a year worldwide in both the RC space as well as the drone space.
Would you say that the company is primarily oriented to the consumer market or to the commercial market?
Well, I'd say we're on both sides. We are a bit in transition from what I would consider a pure consumer drone company to more of a commercial SUAS company. And so we are putting certainly more focus on the commercial industrial side of our business, but we maintain the consumer side of our business, and we've introduced recently a new product called the Typhoon H Plus, and that's for advanced photographers, and we will introduce another new product that you'll hear soon about coming in the next month or so. So we'll continue in the consumer space and then also really emphasize commercial industrial because we do see there's quite a bit of growth in that area.
What did Yuneec see in the industrial market that encouraged it to move a little more aggressively into that space?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. Our flagship product, our Typhoon H, which is our hexacopter, that product we noticed was being used for commercial applications. Even though it was designed as a consumer product and a photography product, we found that public safety agencies were using it. They were using the product for search and rescue. They were using the product for crowd overwatch or even tracking active suspects. So we had seen that evolving. And then, of course, we're following the trends in the business overall. And, of course, a lot of analysts and third parties talking about how the application for drones in the commercial space was going to grow dramatically. So I think looking at, both of those, we decided, hey, we need to take a closer look. And when we did, and when we talked to end users and corporations that were looking to use UAV for inspection, for construction, for agriculture, and of course public safety, we decided this was really something we should go after.
Is the new drone, the H520, a response to that thought process?
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. We really stayed with our signature, which is the hex design, the hex airframe, for a number of reasons. But we did take the Typhoon H really to another level. The H520 is slightly larger. It has an all-new flight controller. And in fact, we have partnered really with the drone code community. And in fact, Lorenz Meyer, who's started drone code, has worked with us in development of that flight control system. And so really an all-new aircraft, but based on our hex design, because we find that design is very stable. It's very safe, right? If you lose a rotor, you can still fly with 5. And so the resulting aircraft is very stable and actually also very quiet compared to just the way we've redesigned it. And it carries enough payload to be effective in the commercial space.
What type of person or industry would the drone appeal to most?
Well, there are a number that we are addressing now with it. I think we're having great success in public safety, whether that be law enforcement, fire, emergency services, or disaster response. So that is definitely a group where the H520 fits quite nicely. It's really the right tool for the job. It's easy to use, and it's quick to deploy. So on the consumer side, we were the first to introduce a product that was quote-unquote ready to fly, the Q500, back about 3 years ago. And some of that is carried into the H520. So it is essentially a complete system. So the law enforcement officer can take the product with them and basically be up in the air within 5 minutes. And so because we have our integrated ST16 ground control station together with the H520, which is relatively compact, even though it's a substantial airframe, the arms fold, you can fit into a backpack or in a hard case, and it's very convenient to transport. So that product's very effective. Not only that, one of the things that we do, because it is a commercial product, we don't have flight restrictions. So many of the consumer products, we include flight restrictions just for the safety of the pilot, recreational pilot. But of course, with the commercial pilot, since they are required to be certified via Part 107, we don't include flight restrictions, so they can fly anywhere, anytime. And as I said, very quick to deploy. So we've had good success with that product in public safety.
Why should those in the commercial sector consider the H520 for their organization? I
think there's a couple of things. I think looking at the company, certainly we have the experience of producing a drone UAV aircraft in the millions of units. So we have obviously a lot of experience and a lot of learning and the ability to reproduce a reliable product. And so I think the experience in the consumer market really helps us on the commercial side. It also bolsters our ability to draw technology sometimes from, the consumer products to commercial. But, beyond some of the things I talked about, like the 6-rotor, which is incredibly safe and stable, that platform, we also offer multiple payloads that can be swapped, actually can be hot swapped. So you literally do not even have to turn the aircraft off. You can land it. You can take off one payload and put on another and be up in the air within a minute or two. So we offer high-resolution, 1-inch camera payload. That's our E90 product. We offer an inspection product, which is a mid-focal length product, which allows the airframe to be a little further back from the asset that's being inspected. And then we also finally offer a dual-camera IR thermal plus RGB arrangement. And those cameras are fully in sync, and the images can be overlaid. And that, by the way, that RGB camera happens to be very low light. So we offer a wide range of payloads that can be hot swapped. and again, the 6 rotor. But the one other thing that we've added to our commercial product that is different from consumer is Data Pilot. And Data Pilot is mission planning software for the commercial user who's going to go out and, for example, fly, a construction site or fly a field, with photogrammetry, use photogrammetry. They can program the mission ahead of time or on site, whatever you like, very simply, and fly that mission in an automated fashion very easily directly from the ST16 controller. We also partnered with Pix4D, photogrammetry software provider, and you can use our Data Pilot or you can use Pix4D Capture, your choice. Of course, with Data Pilot, you can export those files to any photogrammetry tool, whether it be Drone Deploy or Site Scanner or others too. But I think we've added quite a bit into the H520.
So obviously, you're able to tailor a solution and configuration to meet the needs of the client, whether that be bridge building, infrastructure inspections, emergency response, search and rescue, or others. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And what we find often is that we're combining not only the H520 airframe with, let's say, for someone who's doing photogrammetry and, for construction purposes, we're selling them our E90 1-inch high-resolution payload. At the same time, we're often including the thermal imager as well if they want to check sites, whether it's existing buildings or just finished buildings, for any kind of heat loss or any kind of issues, electrical issues that they can use the thermal for. So we're often seeing multiple payloads being combined with the H520 by the same user.
One of the things that caught my eye, primarily due to the news in recent months, was the no transfer of data to remote service feature. Can you talk about that?
By the very nature of the ready-to-fly SUAS system, it is in a sense a closed system. So while you can take the files and upload them to the cloud or to your laptop or other device, the H520 system can operate completely as a closed system. So that gives the user the ability to keep total control of the data that they capture. So the ST16 ground controller and the aircraft itself, right, the payload, we're storing those images. Even though we're streaming those to the ST16 controller, it does not require a connection to the internet. So you can be rest assured the data that you have is your data, and you're in total control.
Was this feature specifically included in the design as a response to the data privacy concerns, or was it just a byproduct of the way the drone was designed in the first place?
Yeah, and more the latter. It was more the latter. We were not anticipating such a strong reaction to the sharing of data, honestly. But of course, as we introduced the product, we realized that we certainly had an advantage there. So I think depending on the user, right? Some are more sensitive, with the data than others. So I'd like to say, hey, we had it all figured out ahead of time. We knew exactly what we were doing. It was a bit of serendipity.
Give us a few examples of how the H520 has been used by commercial operators.
Cecil County, Maryland, the Cecil County Sheriff's Office was using the Typhoon H, is now using the H520. But this is a case that was covered pretty widely back in 2017. The agency, Cecil County Sheriff, used the Typhoon H at that time to get aerial views of a property that they suspected the owner was stealing equipment, mainly construction equipment, from various places throughout. Now, this is in Maryland, but stolen equipment from, across the Mid-Atlantic, so New Jersey, Pennsylvania. So what they were able to do is they were able to get a aerial view. And by the way, since they didn't have a warrant, they were able to view the property and the equipment without getting on the property, because they didn't have a warrant. But they were able to use that video, resulting video and images, to actually obtain a warrant. And so they were able to get on property and then obviously reclaim the stolen equipment. It was about $500,000 worth of stolen equipment. So at least what I've been told by Cecil County is that was the first time a drone was ever used to obtain a warrant in this case.
That's great. Do you have another example?
So Las Vegas Metro Police, they're a good partner of ours and been using H's and H520s for quite some time. One of the issues that we run into here is that sometimes, because of the legal ramifications of some of these things, they're unwilling to publicly disclose some of the information and some of the use cases. But in one case, they have used this in gathering forensic at crime scenes. So, I can't go into too much specifics about that, but Las Vegas has had some high-profile events or incidents that this product has been used to essentially fly over the scene and before the scene is actually breached by personnel, by law enforcement. So it provides, completely unspoiled forensics, at least as a first step in the process.
Do you have a use case from the inspection or emergency response area?
Yeah, emergency response, we had an interesting use of the 520 in Missouri, Greene County, just outside of St. Louis. They had a call about some flooding, and a car had gone off a bridge and into some pretty wooded area. And of course, it was quite flooded, and it was at night. So the Greene County, I forget the actual fire department, actually went out and deployed the H520. And the great thing about using UAV, number one, is, of course, locating, the person or persons they're looking for. And they were able to locate this person. He was able to get out of the car and get on the roof of his car and wait for help. But the great part of this, so they were able to use thermal imaging, right, to locate this person in the dark. And the great thing is they can size up the situation without deploying resources first. And so they can see what they need. They understand what kind of equipment they need to go and rescue that person. So they were able to use it to rescue this person who was caught in a flooded river.
Nowadays, commercial drones have pretty sophisticated systems and sensors. What do organizations need to consider when thinking about an ongoing maintenance program for these systems?
Well, I think the first part of that, and really part of the FAA rules, is to be logging your flights and keeping those logs. So I think it's important certainly to keep track of all of your flight information, also your batteries, how often you're using those. We do offer it is an extra cost for the user, but we offer a program, we call it YES, Unique Enterprise Service, and we will do annual tune-up for you, and we will also support any issues that you have in terms of, I think the biggest thing you run into really on the maintenance side is the products do crash. I mean, they don't, pilots are human and aren't perfect. So sometimes the products do crash, and we take care of those as well. So yeah, I think as long as you make sure that your batteries are kept charged at the appropriate level, which is, 50 to 60% charge when you store them, and obviously fully charged when you fly, and you maintain, records on flight times and all of that, that maintenance is fairly minimal. It's fairly minimal. But again, we offer the ability to be able to provide that for the user.
Frank, is there anything about the drone that we missed that we should talk about?
Did I say that it was hazard orange? If you've seen a picture, then you know that. It's interesting because some people say, hey, that's interesting. Why that color? We found that, and this was really honestly through commercial users using the Typhoon H, is that the dark gunmetal gray color that was not maybe the best for industrial purposes. And so we chose to use a hazard orange, so it can be seen in the sky, it can be seen against buildings and structures, which the darker drone is very difficult to see.
In your role as VP of Sales and Marketing for the Americas, what do you see in the commercial drone segment, and where is it headed? I
think what you're going to continue to see is a larger adoption of UAV. I've read many, many reports about how the commercial drone business is exploding and, people are counting in the billions of dollars. I think right now what we're seeing is that people are putting their toe in the water, maybe their foot in the water, and to see how they will integrate drones into their workflow. So it's one thing to say, hey, the drone is great for search and rescue, or it's great for accident reconstruction, or it's great for doing topographical maps before we prepare the site for the structure. All of these things are great, but people are now purchasing drones and starting drone programs and figuring out how they will integrate UAV into their workflow. And I think that's key, because once that happens in a big way, And I think probably public safety is the quickest to figure this out. I think mainly because their use case is maybe more straightforward than either inspection or construction. And so you're starting to see how people are figuring out, okay, how do I integrate it in the workflow? So that really, I see that as an important growth mechanism for the business, and I see that starting to increase adoption over the next coming months and year or two. So I think that's a big trend.
Does Yuneec work with clients to help them achieve greater value using the technology?
We've done in a couple areas. So one is in software. So we believe that software partnerships are important. And so we're working with Pix4D as an example in photogrammetry. We are working with a company called Drone Logbook for flight logging, maintenance logging. All of those things, we think that the software elements that we don't provide, that will provide a more complete system for the end user, we think is important to promote and partner with those companies. In addition, training, setting up a drone program. We work with a couple of different companies, such as Skyfire, based out of Atlanta, Alaris, based out of Maryland, and others, to make sure that the end user has the know-how to properly set up a drone program, train their pilots, and get up and running quickly and effectively. So it's things like that I think we're partnering on. I talked about also, our YES program, which provides, assurances for the end user that they can stay up and running consistently and create a program. So, yeah, we do believe that it's important to provide, the total solution. Now, on the other hand, too, we're also listening to end users a lot, right? Because these are people, whether they're in public safety, whether they're in construction, whether they're in the inspection or infrastructure side, what are they using it for? What's their workflow look like? And then trying also to share, right? I mean, to cross-pollinate. So end users to other end users, and, anytime we can.
Switching to the consumer market, where do you see that going?
Well, the consumer market really it took off like a rocket ship. It grew so quickly, so fast. And yeah, I think really by the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018, it started to it's leveling off now. I think there's a number of factors there. One is that the commercial channel is growing. And there are a lot of commercial, I can't tell you how many law enforcement officers or fire departments I've talked to that when you say, hey, where did you buy your, the drones that are in your program right now? And they're like, Best Buy or on Amazon. So I think that's shifting a bit, right? So that's taken a little bit of those folks out of what we call the consumer market or retail market, and more products, more commercially dedicated products are being introduced, like our H520. So it's siphoning a little bit of that business off. But I also do believe that the end user is changing a bit, right? Initially, the industry was very focused on photographers and photography, and people were enamored by that. But I think it's hit a saturation point there. And now with, of course, the foldable, much more portable and accessible products, drones that are coming to the consumer market, I think that will help stabilize and hopefully grow. I mean, we introduced the Breeze product, our Breeze product, which is a small quadcopter, super easy to fly. We introduced that back in, it seems so long ago, at the end of 2016. And at that time, really, there was no kind of consumer drone. And I think what we found, we were probably a little bit early. I think there's some adopters of that product. But now I think the market's going to be ready to broaden and utilize drones on a more broad base, again, because they're more portable, they're more accessible, they're more cost-effective, easier to use. So, but I do think that is definitely the phase. The consumer phase is definitely in a flat to slow growth, probably for the next year or two.
Anything on the horizon that we should be looking for?
We have an introduction coming soon. I can't talk about it right now, but we have just recently introduced our Typhoon H Plus, new consumer product with a 1-inch sensor camera. We're really proud that we've introduced that back in June and just starting to sell that to the market now. So we're excited about that new product. But I can't, unfortunately, say anything yet about the new product coming. You'll hear more about that next month in August.
And for my final question, Frank, what message would you like to leave listeners about the Yuneec Corporation and its role in the drone industry?
Well, I'd say Yuneec is a company that has been in the electric aviation and unmanned aircraft business for almost 20 years. We have the experience and the expertise to deliver a product that is dependable. And we have proven that in the consumer space and now are proving it again in the commercial space. I think the combination of the ability to produce these kinds of products, not for such a long period of time, but also in high numbers, enables us to be kind of that stable company that can produce a reliable and high-performance product. And we're very focused on being locally driven. So we are not coming from just the corporate perspective. We are entrenched in the local market, understanding we do our best to understand users' needs and deliver product that meets those needs in the market that they are sold.
That's it for episode 170 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Frank DeMartin of Yuneec and learning how the company serves the consumer and commercial markets. I want to thank Frank for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Yuneec and its products, or want to connect with Frank, check out the webpage at yuneec.com, and that's spelled Y-U-N-E-E-C. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the costs of production. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.